You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. A quick programming note before we get to our very handsome guest today, of all things, intelligent. I wish you could see him like I could. Today will be the normal podcast. Tomorrow is the prediction show. I will go through all 32 teams, give you what I think their record will be. I went 7 for 7 last year on AFC playoff teams before the season started. Hopefully I can do that again this year. We will find out. But again, today is Wednesday. Today's podcast comes out tomorrow. We'll cover the whole league. I'll give you all the records, the playoffs, the Super Bowl winner, etc. But our guest today, the pride of Licking County, Ohio, Fox 19 zone, Jeremy Rauch. You know him in Cincinnati. Jeremy. I almost called you Jerry. I'm going crazy. How are you? Can you tell I just had a huge thing of coffee?
Hey, I'm on one right now. Actually, I'm working on a quadruple shot latte right now to get my day going. Listen, my college roommate called me Jerry. So, Jerry's kind of a funny nickname that no one knows about me, and now they do. So that's cool. I appreciate you mentioning Licking County. While I've got the mic for a minute, shout out to the Licking Valley Panthers, Coach Randy Boffman. I'm pretty sure he's 176 years old now as the head coach for Licking Valley football and will never die.
If you're 176, you're a vampire. So no, you're never going to die.
But yeah, proud alum of Licking Valley and from Newark, Ohio. And if I get a chance to shout that out, that's great. I always tell people I'm from the Central Ohio area. And then they say, oh, cool, where? And I'm like, you wouldn't know it, Newark. And if they say Nurk, aha, and then I'm like, oh, they know. And so that's how I know. And I know you know for sure.
I had to get rid of course, I'm from neighboring Zanesville. I remember the first time I ever saw you, actually, but I had to get rid of kind of that some of that Muskingum County dialect I had when I got on TV. Did anyone ever tell you? I remember Tom Strock at Wiz straight up told me, like, you got to start saying your instead of your and stuff like that. Did anyone do that to you, or you just naturally have it?
I think there were a couple of times where people would say, you have a unique accent. Where is that from? Where does that accent come from? And I would always say, I don't have an accent. I speak literally as normal and as clear as someone could speak. I am accentless. And they said, no, you have an accent. And over the years, my coworker, Joe Daneman, who I've been with now for 8 years in Cincinnati, at times will say, you always say that funny. And I'm like, dude, I say it the right way. So you know what, Matt, I stick to my Newark, Ohio guns on a couple of words.
I've had the exact same thing happen to me. It only once in a blue moon, but someone will be like, you have an accent. Where are you from? And I'll be like, I've never been told. I guess I've been told that like 5 or 6 times, but I've been there too. So as much as we love Muskingum County and Licking County, let's get into it. We're 4 days away from the Bengals and Vikings opening things up. First things first, I think this is in my adult life, like the most excited I've ever been about the season. And I don't think it's because of like expectations. I don't expect the Bengals to win a playoff game this year, but I think what we see over the next few months is a glimpse of what we're going to see over the next few years, maybe 10 to 15 years. Marvin's guys are out. Zach Taylor's guys are in. It's the new regime. Kind of the turnover is complete. And if we see anything like what we saw out of Joe Burrow in 10 games last year, this year, he's got all the makings there. I think things fall into place. Am I oversimplifying this? Do the next few months kind of tell us what the next decade's going to be?
That is exactly, Matt, what this season is supposed to be. Listen, we're talking on a Wednesday here, like you said, 4 days before the opener. And Joe Burrow has just told us today that I feel like I'm going to be better right out of the gates this year than I was last year. Last year was so unique, Matt, because, you've got Joe Burrow playing in a COVID kind of situation where there wasn't really a real training camp and there wasn't a preseason. And then he's tossed into the fire. And even though it's extremely unfortunate that Joe Burrow had his knee wrecked in week 11 at Washington, the fact that he got 9.5, 10 games under his belt in this league, I think Joe Burrow was able to learn so much about what to expect in this league. Everything else around it, COVID, the injury, no fans for the most part, was extremely unfortunate. But it was like a nice warm-up year. And that, to me, is huge for Joe Burrow's mind, because he's talked about all along, if I'm physically ready, I believe I can be elite in this league. So if he is able to drop back and move a little, now certainly I don't think he's going to be able to ad-lib as well as he once did with that knee brace on, Matt. I mean, he's talked to us so many times about how much he hates that darn thing. But if he can be a semblance of that with the weapons that he has, and again, his mind just being that much sharper from the games he did get last year, I do think Joe Burrow can have a much better year. And I do think that it can be kind of just a little taste, an appetizer this year to what the next decade could be.
You mentioned the 9.5 games. I went back and looked. This is interesting. So let's count the Washington games. 7 of the 10 games he played last year were against teams that eventually went on to make the playoffs. And as good as he looked, I did not realize that until I think yesterday when I was going through and looking, because that's what I spend my nights doing. Just incredible that, and let's not act like he blew the doors off, but for a rookie quarterback with half an offseason, if that, and no preseason, kind of incredible when you look at the defenses he went up against looking back now.
You go back and look at his games against the Browns. It was a pretty darn good team. And I think that in and of itself is just one little sample size of what Joe Burrow can be against a defense like that. You got a guy like Myles Garrett coming after you against an offensive line who was terrible last year. And so I think some of those things are good signs for Joe Burrow. I'm curious to see how this works out, though, Matt. I mean, you're excited about it. You told me, even though it may not be a playoff kind of season, even though it may not be a season that they win a playoff game. Joe Burrow has said over and over again, my goal is to win the division, to win a playoff game, to make a run, which is awesome. I don't think they're going to do that. But can we see him start linking up with guys like Jamar Chase? Can T. Higgins have a 1,000-yard season, which he was so darn close to last year? Like some of those things that you're so excited about. Can Joe Mixon be a guy, again, that's maybe top 5 rusher in the AFC? Like all of these things around Joe Burrow, I think are really exciting. I just don't know, and people are excited about the defense, and we can talk about it. I don't know if that defense is actually going to be as good as it's looked in practice and in training camp and all those things around it. But I think that there's a ton of reason to be excited about what Joe Burrow is and what he can be. I think the thing that makes him elite, Matt, is the fact that he was able to last year. You said it wasn't perfect, and Joe Burrow knows that. But we started seeing him reading defenses. There are some throws that he made where you're realizing he's getting there. And even in just those games, like you talked about, so many playoff teams that he faced, so many pretty good defenses that he faced, he was starting to read the defenses better, to use his eyes, to move the safety, to do whatever it might be in certain situations. Those kinds of things are what makes Joe Burrow elite. And I think that is why I'm really excited to see what he does right out of the gates against the Vikings on Sunday.
And you I'll say this, and then you transition perfectly into our next topic. He talked about that about 2 hours ago in his press conference today. He talked about how he's getting his checks better. He's reading the defenses, or he's got a better understanding of what to look for this year after watching tape. Something to remember, Patrick Mahomes, and I don't want to put him in that category yet, but Patrick Mahomes admitted after his first game or his first season starting all 16 games, he didn't know how to read defenses. He had no idea what he was doing out there until the offseason came along and he went back and watched what he was doing. So that's something to keep in mind, because I think a lot of people say, well, number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, didn't know how to read a defense. Mahomes didn't know what he was doing his first year either. It's a whole different ball game. And if Joe Burrow can make that big of a leap, we're going to be pretty happy watching the Bengals on Sunday. Let's get to the next thing. You just kind of said this. I've said since the schedule came out, all I want is them to go into December with the opportunity at a wild card berth, be hovering around that 500 mark. And to do that, I think going at least 2-2 out of the gate, and I think 3-1's possible, is crucial, but also tough. They've got a lot of new pieces, and that's easy to forget about. Am I getting greedy with that? Am I getting overzealous, or should we just hope that Joe Burrow goes out there and looks good and plays all 17 games?
I think if you're a believer that this team is better than it was last year, if you're a believer that Zach Taylor is coaching for his job, which he is, I think you have to believe in them starting out 2-2 or 3-1 based on what the schedule presents. Look, the Bears are not a very good team. That is a game to me that they could win, that they should win. The Vikings, I think, are going to be a stiffer challenge than people think they are going to be, just because I believe that Mike Zimmer is going to have that defense ready, because I believe that Kirk Cousins isn't that terrible. They've got a pretty darn good receiver who Joe Burrow knows pretty well on that side. And then you've got Dalvin Cook, who has the potential, and I'm not trying to bring anyone down, has the potential to destroy the Bengals defense, to run all over them, because the Bengals defense has struggled against elite running backs like that.
When it's the
specifically.
tackling, right? We saw that last year,
Yes.
that the problem's not getting to the ball carrier. The problem's bringing him down, and he's a guy who can break tackles.
And so, Lou Anarumo's defense has struggled against good running backs, decent running backs at best. And I know they beat the Titans last year, and people remind me of that when I talk about good running backs, but I know that happened. But I'm just saying, I just think people are saying that the Vikings game is kind of an easy win, start out with a feel-good win, then head to Chicago and beat the Bears. I don't know that it's that easy, but I do see 2 or 3 should kind of wins in the first handful of games. I'm really intrigued. I'm talking about the first handful of games here, Matt. I'm really intrigued in that game at Pittsburgh, because people have also said Steelers are going to finish last in the division. Big Ben's dead. I mean, and listen, and we're all ready to see it, right? We're ready to, man, this has got to be the end of the Steelers, right? This has got to, when is Big Ben just going to when is Big Ben going to walk onto the field and his leg just falls off? And then we realize, okay, this time they don't glue it back on. This is the end. But until that happens, I still have to view the Steelers as a threat. Even though they derailed at the end of last season, I still see that game at Pittsburgh early in the season as a tough game to win. And also, by the way, Aaron Rodgers is coming to Paul Brown Stadium in the first handful of games. So I think 2-2 or 3-1 would be a great start. 3-1 would be great. 2-2 would be good, and it's realistic. I think it should be done, because if they don't start that way, the schedule really does get a lot tougher down the road. And Zach Taylor, again, is coaching for his job.
And as far as the Steelers go, and I don't know that anyone at Paul Brown Stadium would admit this, it is a mental hurdle to go into Pittsburgh and beat that team. And I don't know if you can consider them getting to that next level where they are competing for the playoffs. And I'm not saying they have to do it this year, but until they can do that on not necessarily a consistent basis, but until they can go in there, compete regularly, we can't sit here and say, well, they're playoff contenders.
Correct. I mean, they have to. We know what the national narrative is on the Bengals. I mean, there were a bunch of guys from The Athletic who collectively talked to NFL execs all over the league and said, can you rank this team, that team, down the line? And so all of these NFL execs spoke to The Athletic and they ranked the Bengals. And this was about a week ago. They said the Bengals are going to finish 14th out of 16 in the AFC, and they're going to finish last in the division. And that's how the Bengals are viewed right now. I do think the Bengals are a better team overall than the Steelers. I really believe that. But as you said, it's the mental hurdle. They have to somehow not finish last in the AFC North this season. I think the Ravens are better. I think the Browns are better. And I don't think anyone would dispute that right now. But they have to somehow swing above their weight class. And in doing that, they have to start swinging that narrative. It's going to take some time. And I think, Matt, as you talk about this year, maybe it's not a playoff year, but it can be a narrative swinging kind of year for the Bengals. Could it be one of those years where they kind of start getting that edge, even that mental edge on the Steelers? And then it's like, okay, here come the Bengals. Here comes Joe Burrow. He's had a good year. Maybe they go 9-8, right? Maybe they're right there around 500. They missed the playoffs, but it's like, okay, narrative is starting to swing. And I think that's the kind of year they have to have.
I agree with you. That said, we got to start. We don't have to start. I don't want to be the coach speak guy, one game at a time. But it starts with Minnesota this Sunday, then, of course, Chicago. But as far as this Sunday goes, I think the key to winning the game is to hit Kirk Cousins, get 6 feet away from him immediately after you do. And that's, you don't want to turn this into a shootout right away. You don't want Joe Burrow to have to come back off that injury and throw the ball 40 or 50 times right out of the gate. I'm putting this game on that front seven of the defense. I think they will dictate whether or not the Bengals win. Do you think they win? Do you think that would be the reason? And why or why not?
I think it's a really good question. I think that it is going to be, there's a lot of curiosity in what this defensive line is going to be. I don't want to digress and get much into last year, Matt, but I do want to mention just briefly, like with Geno Atkins last year, all year long, people thought that Zach Taylor was benching Geno Atkins, when in reality, Geno Atkins had a conversation with Zach saying, hey, man, I'm not at my best. They basically had a limited snaps kind of chat together. But because of what Carlos Dunlap was doing, people thought that Geno Atkins was lumped into that. And there was just so much drama all year long. Not that it played out on the field and not that they would have been better if there wasn't that drama or whatever. But you talked about Marvin's guys are out now. These are Zach's guys. This is a defense that basically now Lou Anarumo and Zach collectively have handpicked. These are their guys. There's no more of can the old guy come in and still make it work. These are their guys. And by the way, you just signed Sam Hubbard. Can you go in there and prove that you actually can have an impact on the game on the defensive line? Something we haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of, right? So I think that's going to be huge in this game. I think it's a great point, Matt. I don't know, do I actually think the Bengals are going to win this game? And I know it's probably easy just to put a score prediction on this kind of a game. I could see the Bengals winning this game something like 27-21, 27-24, somewhere in there. If they're going to win this game, I don't think they're going to completely shut down the Vikings. I think Dalvin Cook might have a decent game, but I think it comes down to the Bengals defense being just good enough and Jamar Chase not dropping a couple of balls. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be this tight little window of a couple of things that do happen or don't, which is how the NFL works. And Joe Burrow mentioned it with us recently. He said, look, last year we led in the fourth quarter, and he named the amount of games. And I don't have the stat in front of me, but it was in several games. Like Bengals stats, if you know Jay Morrison of The Athletic, he does these devastating stats that only work for the Bengals.
Probably, with no offense to anyone else, probably my favorite Bengals follow on Twitter, Jay Morrison.
Yeah, Jay Morrison's fantastic. I love the stats he puts out, and he would put this out. But I'm going to say several games because I know it's more than 5. They led in the fourth quarter in several games, and almost every time they lost those games. And so I can see this as a game like that, where the Bengals have a lead in the fourth quarter, where they have a chance to win this game. And then it's going to come down to whatever the heck happens in the fourth quarter. And can Zach Taylor actually hang on and win a game? Can the defense actually do it? But I could see it. I could see a 27-21 kind of game playing out on Sunday.
And maybe that's the difference this year. They've learned how to close those games. And I know that I've mentioned this on the podcast, on Twitter, wherever. That was the problem last year. They were close so many times. But if you can't close out a game there's a reason that Vegas is right so often in the NFL, and it's so hard to win money there. It's because these games so often do come down to who knows how to close them out, who doesn't. And right now, the Bengals don't look like they know how to, but did that change in the offseason? We'll find out. And maybe we'll find out on Sunday against Minnesota. I will let you get back to work, but first we're going to do a little rapid fire. Is that cool with you?
Bring it, baby.
All right. We call it rapid fire. You may elaborate as much as you would like or not like to. Question 1, have you ever cried as an adult over a sporting event?
No, I have been in a deep, deep, dark hole over a sporting event. And I can't, you tweet this out, right? You're going to tweet this out?
The links, yes. I won't tweet like your quotes.
This is going to be public.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna tell you a story that I shouldn't tell.
Those are my favorite kind of stories. But
I'm going to tell it anyways. There are enough people around Cincinnati that I think have put 2 and 2 together that I'm from Central Ohio and that maybe I'm a Buckeye fan. I can be a pro when I'm covering the Buckeyes, okay? I can be a pro. But the Fiesta Bowl, the year was 2020. You know this game, Matt.
Unfortunately, yes.
And I am on the field covering the game. And at this point, the Buckeyes are driving and, Clemson had just scored and the Buckeyes are driving down 29-23. They have a chance to go right down the field to win the game. So I'm on the field. I have my camera and you know how this works, Matt. It's like you're either going to run on the field and you're going to get like confetti and celebration and trophies and we're going to the championship, or you're going to get sad Chase Young walking off the field with his head down and know that's his last game. And of course, Chris Olave breaks the wrong way on what he thought was an ad-lib route. And I'm standing right there on the sideline, right by the end zone where it happens. And I see Chris Olave breaking towards me and I see, and it hits me. Oh my gosh, that's the end. And in the moment, I'm like, be a pro. I had to go on the field, get some players walking off. We had to do post-game pressers. I had to shoot stuff for the morning show because it was like 12:30 in the morning and Eastern time. And I had decided after the game, there was a cigar bar right where I was staying in the Glendale area. I had decided that I was going to go to that cigar bar and just have a celebratory cigar because I was so darn confident Ohio State was going to win that game.
Ugh.
So what I did instead was I went to this cigar bar in depression and I had a depressing cigar and bourbon at 2 a.m. and all the TVs in the cigar bar had Sports Center on. So it was over and over and over again. Ohio State and Clemson, the fumble that was called back, like all of that would have been a touchdown, like all these things just playing out on the screen. And I'm pretty sure this guy next to me tried to talk to me, like make small talk. And I don't even know that I responded to him. So like, I didn't cry that night, but I remember when I left, I said, I'm never coming back to Arizona again. I'm never coming to Phoenix and flying into this godforsaken area. And then of course, a month and a half later, I went back for spring training and then COVID hit. So all of it's bad juju, but
there were so many things that went again. Ohio State just needed, you mentioned all the things. If they had like one of those things go in their favor that game, they win.
I don't think that's a 10-minute answer because I don't think I cried, but as an adult, I've never been in a lower place of, I think I was so sunk down in my leather chair. I was sitting in this lounge. Like, I think I was almost laying down. And then I remember I got like an hour and a half of sleep and went to the airport the next morning and flew home. So yeah, it was bad place.
Well, I thank you for having the courage to tell that story on the podcast. And we will continue along here. Second thing, a current pet peeve of yours.
Okay, current pet peeve of mine is a media pet peeve that I blame Joe Danneman for this because he has spoken it into existence by saying it to me over and over again. So I have said over and over again, like, hey, we got to do a sit down with so-and-so, like name your player. We got to do a sit down. Let's try and get him for a one-on-one sit down. And he's like, why does it always have to be sitting down? Does the content improve when you're sitting down? I'm like, I don't know. And then I've realized that media people like myself, and I've done this before as well, we kind of like flex. Like, I sat down with fill in your coach or player, and like you post that and you're like, game over.
I know exactly. This sounds like a Seinfeld media bit. Like if he were a sportscaster in a different life, this would be something he talked about at open mics on stage. I know there's so many things like this in local TV where it's like they'll run a promo, our sit down with, practice squad punter, just whatever.
It is spiking the football on your media brethren. And I've since been so amused by that. And now it's actually become a pet peeve. I'm like, you're right. It's ridiculous. People are like, I sat down, and it's like, wow. And then the content is like, yeah, we got to take it game by game.
Right.
Every now and then you'll get something really cool and it's good. And obviously getting a one-on-one, if I were to get one with Joe Mixon or Joe Burrow, it'd be a big get. My station would go crazy. Joe Mixon has been stringing me along for years with this. I love Joe Mixon. He's great. He all the time we're in DMs. He's like, yeah, man, I'm ready whenever. Hasn't happened. I love Joe, but it's just a funny thing. It's kind of a pet peeve because I'm just like, it's a way that media spike the football and other media. And I think it's amusing. That's all.
Got to get that promo in. Next question. Who wins the AFC North? As Jeremy takes a drink of that quadruple super latte.
They can't see this on the podcast.
They cannot.
We don't have a visual podcast.
We could. I just choose not to. We're recording this right now.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Wow, this is tough.
I'm assuming you're thinking Ravens or Browns.
I am, and that's why it's tough. I've got like a wild hair in me that wants to pick the Browns. What's funny is that people love to hate Baker Mayfield.
They do. And
you know what's funny? There's been a lot of losing quarterbacks in Cleveland. There's a list, as you know.
On the back of a Tim Couch jersey.
That is exactly correct. Right below that number 2. And Baker Mayfield has had he's had some coaching changes. He's had a lot of drama. He's had a lot of things happen. And Baker Mayfield's been pretty good for the most part.
As I saw this yesterday, he could become the first player and only the second player ever since Peyton Manning to throw for 3,500 plus yards in each of his first 4 seasons.
And there have been times where Browns fans, I'm seeing on social media, like Browns fans are like, oh, I work with a guy who's a Browns fan. I love him. Jason's awesome. But it's times he's like, Baker's got to go. I'm like, Jason, you know.
Do you not remember the Brandon Weeden days, the Johnny Manziel days?
Brandon Weeden was drafted at 39 years old.
Yes.
28 or 29, but still.
He's roommates with my grandfather now.
Okay. Anyhow, I think I'm gonna hot route. I'm gonna take the Browns because I think Baker Mayfield is only getting better right now still. love their running game. I love their defense. And I just wonder when the Ravens are going to just tick down a little. I think this might be the year, just a little bit.
Okay. Other end, who's in the basement? Who finishes last in the AFC North?
These are tougher than I thought they would be. I thought I was going to have a canned answer ready. I think, boy, this is going to come back to bite me. I think the Steelers might finish last.
Okay.
I don't know if Big Ben has another full year in him. I don't know.
I'm right there with you. And you combine the fact that their offensive line stinks.
Yeah.
He's going to take some hits early on. And that was the thing last year. I wonder if it's a thing where his body just isn't responding well to the cold anymore. We kind of saw that with Peyton Manning, where he was okay the first half of the year. And then in Denver, when it got chilly out, man, it's like his body was like, no, we're done with this.
Yeah. And he doesn't keep his body as trim and as groomed and as everything as Tom Brady.
No, and Tom Brady's Tom Brady.
Yeah. I mean, look, we get it. So I think it's close. I could see the Steelers winning something like 7 games and the Bengals having maybe one more win, maybe 1 or 2. I think it's going to be close, but I do think that it's going to start changing. I don't know, man. Like the thing is if Big Ben goes down, are they going to give Dwayne Haskins a shot? I don't know. I don't know. But I digress. I think it's going to be the Steelers just by a touch in the basement there.
All right. Steelers in the basement. I asked Rick Broering this a couple weeks ago. I couldn't believe the responses on Twitter I got for this. Better shot at their respective playoffs, the Cincinnati Bengals or Luke Fickell's Cincinnati Bearcats?
Ooh.
I'm throwing you some brain busters here. I'm really making those wheels turn, aren't I?
Yeah, and I am going to go with, I just texted a friend about this today. Actually, my uncle who works for Ohio State in Columbus was saying, how about them Bearcats? And I think it's Luke Fickell. I think it's the Bearcats because I don't really believe that the Bengals are going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, just to be quite frank with you. And so I think that it's the Bearcats because I think it might be kind of a weird year. I don't think that Georgia is good enough to compete with Alabama. I just don't. I need, even though they had their best wide receiver out, I tweeted something about this and annoyed a couple of people. I think their offense looks terrible, absolutely dreadful. And even when they get a better receiver, I don't think it's good enough to beat Alabama. What I saw at Alabama, even against an abysmal Miami Hurricanes team, like, dude, Alabama hasn't gone anywhere. So I think Bama's winning the SEC and they get in. I don't know about the Big 12. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if the Big 12 is getting a team in. I really don't. I don't know if Oklahoma is going to get there. I sure as heck don't believe in Iowa State right now. And you need something like that to happen, right? You need to have an open door. If you're going to have if you're going to have a Bama and you're going to have an Ohio State and maybe Clemson battles their way back in because they're Clemson and they run the table, then maybe you have a spot there. And I think if they beat Indiana, which I think they can, and if they beat Notre Dame, they're good, man.
If they go undefeated again and don't get in, Bearcats fans have every right to just go insane.
And I don't feel like the reason why I say Bearcats and Luke Fickell is my answer. I don't feel like it's as much of a pipe dream as it was last year. Last year it was like they weren't really getting that respect, and then they finally kind of got there on the edge of it, but it wasn't enough, and it was too late. They're number 7 in the country right now, and it's week 2, right? So they're there. To quote Dumb and Dumber, we're there. And they're going to face Indiana, who looks, pedestrian after their opening loss. Who knows? And Notre Dame is vulnerable. I mean, Jed Demusi, I'm not going to share what he said with me on text the other night.
Come on, let's hear it.
Look, he tweeted, follow Jed Demusi on Twitter. He tweeted as much. He's out. He called Notre Dame a pretender. And if UC thinks that they have any legitimate shot, they got to win those games. And if they do, they're good. And I truly believe it's a possibility.
All comes down to execution, Jeremy. You have been kidnapped, but the kidnapper says you can watch one movie while you're being held in captivity. What movie are you choosing?
Because I am in captivity and I want to feel like that there is possible redemption. Shawshank Redemption.
Okay, Shawshank. I thought you were going to say Taken. So like someone would come save you.
No, not like I will find you. No, I was gonna go with Forrest Gump, but I was like, if I'm in captivity and I want some kind of hope, I pop in Saw 4. No, I'm kidding. I want to see.
Have you seen Saw 4?
I think I stopped after the first 2 or 3. Because I had a roommate in college who was obsessed with the Saw movie. He's like, dude, Saw's out. We got to go. I'm like, they're going to trap someone in the bathroom, like chop their head off and have chainsaws everywhere.
And then they have to reassemble their own head.
Exactly. Yeah, Shawshank. Oh, man. Shawshank Redemption gets me right in the feels. Absolutely, Shawshank. Yes.
There you go. Fantastic movie. People just started mowing my neighbor's grass, which is, I always hope they do it during the 45 minutes I'm recording my podcast every week. Next question. We're going a little slow here, but that's fine with me. I got all day. You're the one who's at work. No, Joe Burrow said today during his press conference that Cincinnati has some underrated restaurants. He didn't get to experience them last offseason, but he's having a lot of fun with them this offseason. What do you think is the Queen City or the surrounding areas most underrated restaurant?
I am going to go with an Anderson special. No, I won't. I'm going to go with.
Wait, is Anderson? I don't even know what that is. Is that a restaurant?
Anderson Township is where I live.
Okay.
It's about 15, 20 minutes outside of Anderson. I'm going to go with a place in Newtown. I don't even know if a lot of people in Cincinnati know Newtown that well. You can get to Newtown from downtown Cincinnati in about 15, 20 minutes. And it's
over to the east, right?
That is correct. East side, beach side. And I just made that up.
It's a good one.
Urban Grill. But if you're not in the mood for an underrated restaurant like Urban Grill, or even a place called Bite in Milford, which is way out there, and I know it's a long drive from downtown Cincinnati, but I got to get you out of OTR. You know, if you're living downtown, you got to get out, enjoy the country for a minute, and know these underrated restaurants. But if you want to have a drink, go to Mount Adams and go watch a little live music and have a couple of unique drinks at the Blind Lemon.
The Blind Lemon, classic bar name. All right, well, we got some options there. Moving right along here, back to football. Who wins the Super Bowl? 3 left.
Oh, man.
I should have gave these to you before. I apologize.
No.
But by the way, I'm giving I'm giving him these on the spot. He's a man of intellect. He's thinking about these. And that's what makes him a great reporter, is he puts his time and effort into things.
I put my time and effort into things because I care.
He does.
I'm gonna make a pick that is sure to come back and absolutely destroy me.
Okay.
If
I think I know where you're going. Okay. No, I don't. Go on.
Can stay healthy, I'm gonna pick the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Dallas Cowboys. How about that?
I don't even like that pick, but I'm gonna just go for it.
All right. Free country, do what you want. So I have met your wife a couple times, Twitterless Laura. I believe I met her the first time in a Jacksonville airport. I put this on Saturday. Any marriage advice for myself or any married folk out there?
Yes. I would say view whatever you do and however you come into conflict with your wife, which you will when things don't go right, or things are annoying you or bothering you, view whatever you say in the mindset or almost in the, just kind of in the idea that you are with her forever. And that whatever you're doing and however you're reacting, whatever you might say in that moment, that you don't want it to.
You're reminding me of Michael Scott, where it's like, what's the quote he has where it's like sometimes, like where he's saying sometimes he starts with a quote and doesn't really know where he's going.
Yes. I think it's important to remember, like, I'm not going to set this thing on fire because I don't even know that if I'm in it for the long run. Like, view whatever you do or however you say or you respond or whatever you're thinking about doing, or if things go bad, remind yourself, I am with her forever. We're in this together forever, no matter what. And so we're going to find a way to figure this out.
Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
That is exactly correct.
All right.
So yeah, that's my best. I hope that helps you. I mean, I hope that, when she keeps setting something on the counter over and over again, you're like, why is that always there? I
That is
really,
one of our biggest problems. You'll get a thing out to make a smoothie, and like the thing is still sitting there 2 weeks
yeah,
later. I don't know where it goes. There's a lot of baskets with a
yeah.
lot of different cooking things in them. I don't want to take the time to dig through them, but I also don't want her to not know where it is next time. What do I do there?
So you ask questions, okay? And you have to ask them in an unassuming way. You're a comedian, so you can do this as well. It's like, hey, honey, where should I put this? Do it kind of like I'm an idiot, but I'm kind of like poking at your thing you left out. You got to find that nice kind of like happy medium, or just ask it in a question like, hey, I noticed this was laying here. What are you using that for? Like, what is the purpose of this being here right now? And she'll say, oh, honey, let me just go ahead and like put you outside and lock the door because you're being a jerk right now. Just ask it like an inquisitive way. You know what I mean? We'll get by. You'll be fine.
Okay, I like where you're going with that. And finally, we'll get back to a Bengals one for our last one. Who is your breakout Bengal of 2021?
Ooh, my breakout Bengal of 2021. Well, I can't take any any of the big stars, right?
Well, no, I mean like Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, people know who they are. I'd even say someone like Trey Hendrickson or DJ Reader wouldn't be eligible. They've got big money.
Sure. I picked him last year, and I'm going to take him again, even though it's probably not fair to say this. I think CJ Uzama was going to have a pretty darn big year last year. I almost went with Auden Tate because Auden Tate, people forget that he has glue hands, and he's not Jamar Chase, he's not T. Higgins, he's not Tyler Boyd. But you start talking about all these weapons, and Joe Mixon calls them the Fab Five or Fabulous Five, I think he put it. CJ Uzama, I think Joe Burrow really wants to use CJ Uzama a lot. I think it was working last year. I think it was going to be a fantastic connection. And I think CJ Uzama is going to have a year that people are like, oh yeah, Cincinnati, like the Bengals have a tight end. And I didn't even know how to pronounce his name before this year. I think people might know now, like nationally, might know how to pronounce his name after a year like this, if he has a good one.
What would that mean for Drew Sample?
I like Drew Sample. I don't like him as much as CJ Uzama. I mean, listen, they're going to use Drew Sample. There's going to be times where he is a part of the game plan when they're in 12 personnel and he's in there and maybe catching passes or blocking at times. I think he's going to have a decent year, but I don't think Drew Sample is going to have the kind of year I see CJ Uzama having. So I think Drew is actually, for as much flack as the Bengals caught for drafting him where they did, I think Drew Sample is starting to show his worth more and more. And a lot more than I thought he would already. His hands are better than I thought they would be. And he has been I don't know, substantial's too big of a word, but I think certainly a serviceable player for where they drafted him. And I think he's only getting better.
Yeah. And I'll tack on there that when you look around the AFC North and the pass rushers in that division, he can block too for,
Absolutely.
By tight end standards. And with as inconsistent as this line has been, and as much as you want to protect your young quarterback, hopefully he doesn't need to come into play much there. But if he does, that's a guy you feel good about getting the chip on Myles Garrett or TJ Watt before he goes out for a little out route. Jeremy Rauch, you have any questions for me? Anything you want to know?
Yeah, sure. I'll ask you this.
Okay.
Would you, given the opportunity, ever get back into local TV?
I don't think so. I get asked this a lot. I have been asked if I had any interests in a few different places. And no, with my job that I'm doing now outside of television, which I started doing when I was in New York, and I've been working from home for 3 years, I just have so much freedom. I know it's tacky to get into money, but I make more than I did in TV. If I want vacation time, I just take it. And as long as I get the stuff done I need to get done, I can work from anywhere as long as I have internet and a laptop. So look, man, I loved my 7 or 8 years in local TV. I don't regret a minute of it, but no, the older I got, the more interest I started to get outside of sports, and doing this podcast allows me to still, enjoy the Bengals and talk to people like you. And I do this podcast because I enjoy it, not for any sort of, I'm not trying to get sponsors or anything like that. But no, I don't see a situation where I get back into local TV now, maybe in the future. And I've told you this before, if someone needs a guy to shoot high school football on Friday nights and someone calls me up after my nephew's done playing, sure, I'd be interested in that. But as a full-time gig, no. I mean, I don't think people realize the hours that you put in, and they all think that, oh, it's a fun job. You go on TV and just talk about sports. No, you work 10-hour days, 5 or 6 days a week. And most of that time you're doing the grunt work for the person on TV who is you.
Yeah,
Did I encapsulate it all there?
No, you nailed it. You nailed it because, my kids are always, my kids are 6 and 4 now, and they're, getting more into sports. We're having more days, especially my 6-year-old son, of like practice and then a game on Sundays or a game on Saturday, sometimes a soccer game on Sunday as well. And I start thinking about, man, okay, when this really stacks up as they get older, what am I going to do? And you're telling me that I can, dictate my own schedule and go on vacation more and make more money outside of local TV. So I feel great about it.
Hey, man, I lucked into what I'm doing now. Most people get out of TV and go into PR or whatever. And not that there's anything wrong with that. And
not that there's nothing wrong with it.
No, I tried to stay in media when I got out of local TV and had I thought I had landed a job at Sirius XM in New York and didn't end up getting it. Probably got a little too comfortable with the fact that I thought I was going to get that job. And then started doing what I do now as a side hustle, and it quickly turned into a full-time thing. And yeah, still doing it. And it's good. And I still, this is kind of like, this podcast kind of scratches that itch for me, and tweeting and this and that. Not that that's anything close to what you do as a sports reporter, but again, just enough to take that edge off. But there are things I miss when I see you guys. I mean, down at Bengals camp, I miss things like, there are definitely things that I miss, but overall I have a better quality of life now. And I don't know that my now wife would even entertain the idea of me going back to those hours.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, Laura's been in it for so long now. I've been at TV for 13 years and she's so used to it. I can't imagine. I mean, COVID was like a taste of what it looks like to have a different schedule because I was home more often. I can't imagine leaving it and then coming back, especially if I had a better schedule. But I think you're doing a good thing, Matt. And I would be the same way as you, by the way. I would have to somehow scratch that itch because I love just talking sports. So if I got out, I would do some kind of a podcast. But I will say, man, I've seen your podcast. It's on my timeline on Twitter. I see people share it. So I know you're doing good things, man.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that very much. By the way, Fox game Saturday. So are you coming up to Columbus?
I will not be there. We have to basically, this works. Our marketing team has to decide that they want us to do a pregame show and sell it and sponsor it and all that kind of stuff. And we already have pre or post game. We already have the Bengals are on Fox.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Week 1 and week 2. Matter of fact, the Bengals play 5 times on Fox this season. One of them is against Green Bay here, which is going to be awesome. So
you can do a sit down with Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, Fox 19's Jeremy Rauch gets Aaron Rodgers. He gets what? And then Aaron's like, the front office is terrible. I hate them. We already knew that. So yeah,
but did he say it sitting down before?
That's exactly right. He was standing at a podium. We will do the Michigan game on Fox. We will certainly do a big special for that. Other ones I'm not sure of yet though.
Okay. He is on Twitter at Fox19 Jeremy. Friday nights, you guys do such a great job with the Fox 19 Final Corner. You and Joe D. Joe T, not Joe Tessitore, Joe Daneman. And I cannot encourage people enough to pay attention to your local sportscast for all your information. I've been doing that so much more since I've been back with Jared Smalley here in Columbus. It's just, you kind of forget, like, I need to get lesson for as much as we talk about what you do. And we're talking about how good Jay Morrison is at sticking stuff out there on Twitter. It's like so much of Twitter, like you guys do like the 10% of good stuff, but then it's so much like retweet if Joe Mixon will run for more than 1,000 yards this year. And you forget when you watch the local news that you just get good information and the things you need to know. So I can't encourage people enough to watch your local sportscast, Jeremy.
You're a good man, Matt. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on, Jeremy Rauch, and we'll see. We got a lot of predictions here. We're going to keep this in the vault and talk about it maybe in week 18. Okay. Long silence. Was waiting on a response for Jeremy. Didn't get it. Tell everyone bye, Jeremy.
Oh, I thought that was your sign off.
No, I don't really have a sign off. I just kind of wing it.
Okay. That was amazing. That was like,
there's no cue here like in actual TV where you get a countdown clock and then a.
Yeah. Okay. So my prediction was, hold on, let me go back to this really quick.
Yeah. You got the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. You got the Browns winning the AFC North.
Which a couple of these are crazy. I've got the Steelers finishing in last. This Sunday, I said 27-21 Bengals. Don't forget that one. And I said the Bengals might go something like 9-8, but I wasn't sure.
Yes, you said give or take 2 games, which I think is a very fair prediction. And again, I'll have my predictions tomorrow.
All right. And I won't go silent ever again. Actually, it's hard to get me to go silent.
That I am aware. All right, Jeremy Rauch, thanks so much. This is the actual sign off. It's in the jungle. If you like it, subscribe, give it a rating, and make sure you give Jeremy a follow on Twitter. All the greatest content right there that you need for your Cincinnati sports takes. We will see you tomorrow for the prediction show.